Hey everyone, welcome back to the Nello Reads channel. Our first malicious compliance story comes from Not Gay Ryan. Neighbor wanted the fence fixed, we just removed the fence. This happened to my friend. Him and his wife just moved into their first house about 6 months ago. Soon after, a strong wind came through and damaged their fence. And by damaged, I mean their fence was now leaning slightly about 70 degrees. Because home insurance won't fix the fence, plus it being winter, my friend and his wife were going to wait until spring to hire someone to fix/replace their fence. Well, their backyard neighbor did not like that. Their backyard neighbor wanted the fence fixed ASAP. When the neighbor found out they were going to wait until spring, the neighbor called the city and complained that their fence was out of code. When the city inspector came out to inspect their fence, it was, in fact, out of code and needed to be corrected. Now, the reason the neighbor was so fixated on the fence being replaced is because the neighbor has a pool in their yard and needs to have a fence around their pool for safety. They're not allowed to use the pool without it. Well, my friend and his wife, now pissed off at their neighbor, decided to remove the fence and not replace it. This allows them to be in city code, and now when the spring hits, their neighbor is going to need to build a fence on their backside of the yard if they want to fill up the pool for summer. If the neighbor would have just been nice and not called the city like a Karen, my friend would have built the fence up in the spring no problem, long before summer hits. I mean, in this case, I kinda get it. I like my house looking nice, but the story is still pretty funny. I mean, if the options are remove the fence or get it fixed, one is a little easier and cheaper than the other. Like how easy it is to press the like button on this video, which you should totally do if you're enjoying the video. Our next story of the day comes from Writes for Dough 42. Don't tell me your designer knows what she's doing. She clearly doesn't. This happened a couple years ago in 2008. At the time, I was working for a direct mail company that also had a 17-foot Canon color laser printer, so we could do specialty print jobs. I had been in marketing for 15 years at this point, and while I wasn't a graphic designer, I knew enough to have intelligent conversations with real designers. A quick graphic design lesson. When designing for printed products, you can't put anything behind your photos or graphic elements. That is, if you stick a blue background behind a photo, your printer thinks it's supposed to print the photo and the background. The photo will look like it's at the bottom of a swimming pool. To avoid this, you have to cut out a box the size of the photo called a knockout, and put the photo inside the box. That way, you don't print the blue background under the photo. Got it? Anyone who understands how to design for print knows that one simple trick. I had a marketing agency as a new client, and my contact was the son of the owner, and he thought he was a big shot. It took everything I had not to roll my eyes whenever I met with him. We'll call him Johnny Big Shot. Johnny Big Shot wanted 500 brochures for a big real estate agency client. It was only $250, so not a very big job. No problem, I said. Does your graphic designer know how to design for print? Oh, sure, she just graduated from college and has her degree in graphic design. Sure, but most people don't print things anymore, so most designers don't learn it. So are you sure she knows how to design for print? Johnny Big Shot assured me that yes, his designer was also a big shot and knew her stuff. So when you get her file, just print out the order. Don't mess with it at all, he said. I rolled my eyes in the car so hard I saw the back of my skull. The file the designer sent over had large black polka dots as a background on the entire page with a large red box in the middle. My production manager showed me the sample and you guessed it, the black polka dots showed through the red box. Should we fix this? Asked the production manager. Oh no, I said smiling. Johnny Big Shot was very specific about not messing with it. I told her about Johnny Big Shot's designer and she cackled with evil delight. She printed the job and our delivery driver delivered it that same day. A few hours later, I got an angry phone call from Johnny Big Shot demanding my presence at the agency. I showed up and there's Johnny Big Shot, white knuckle clutching one of the offending brochures. What the hell is this? He demanded, winding up to make this whole thing my fault. I know, I said. It looks like crap, doesn't it? You're right, it does. Why does it look like this? I paused, took a breath, and said, do you remember when I kept asking whether your designer knew how to design for print? Yeah. And you told me that she absolutely, without question, understood all that? Yeah. He wasn't sure where this was going, but he wasn't liking it. Well, she doesn't, I said, because people who know how to design for print know that you never put a background behind other graphic elements. They know you need a knockout behind the photo. Yeah, but... And we didn't fix the problem on our end because you told us to absolutely not touch it at all. Yeah, but if you'd like, we can rerun the job for you. And even though it was your error, he gave a pained gurgle, we'll rerun the job for half the cost. Half? Exclaimed Johnny Big Shot. My boss wanted to charge the full amount, but I talked him into half for you. He didn't, I hadn't. Just have your designer fix the problem and resend it, and we'll get it done for you tomorrow. We could have fixed the error, but I wanted the hotshot designer to learn how to fix her own error so she didn't make it again. She fixed it, we ran the job early the next morning, and I hand-delivered it to the client myself by lunchtime. Our client was happy, their client was happy, and they always gave us print-ready work from then on. Aw, well that's a nice ending. A good learning moment for everyone. I'm glad Johnny Big Shot didn't freak out on OP too much and took his mistake pretty well. Not everyone is like that. A lot of people probably would have just doubled down and said, oh, it's your fault, not mine. The third story comes from FredSam25. Account closing fee? Okay, leave my account open forever. A long time ago, I worked at a company that gave me a retirement account through Fidelity. I eventually changed jobs to a different company that provided a retirement account through another provider. So I call up Fidelity to roll my old account funds into my new one. Fidelity can do that for me, but there is a $50 account closing fee. Why do they have an account closing fee? Because F me, that's why. I tried to be clever and say leave $1 in the account, but they require a $50 minimum in case you do want to close at a later date. Cue malicious compliance. Okay, roll over all my funds except for $50. Keep the account open. Send me quarterly updates on my $50. Invest it, make it grow. I now have a tradition. Once a year, I call Fidelity to transfer over all but $50 of my account balance, usually just a check for a few dollars. By this point, I've cost them way more than $50 of service, postage, and checks they mail to me. But I still have a few decades to retirement. Let's see how much I can cost them before they give me my $50. I'll go to my grave with that account still open if it means Fidelity never gets the account closing fee. Why? Because F them. Edit, I have a pretty embarrassing update. I called up Fidelity this morning after this post blew up to see if I could get them to waive the closing fee. Turns out they got rid of the closing fee years ago. I never bothered to ask about it after that initial call with them. That is how malicious I am with my compliance. I've been needlessly effing with them for no reason. Anyway, the guy asked if I wanted to close my account. I told him, nah, I'm in too deep, let it ride. I absolutely hate things like account opening and closing fees. Like, I know you have a button on your computer that'll close my account with about a minute worth of effort, and you've made money off my money for years, so why do I need to give you more money just to get my money back? What a crazy world. That little edit by OP at the end is really funny though, and part of the reason that I really wanted to share this story. Our next one is from an anonymous poster. Booked a hotel just for a meal. Several years ago, when I was working for a construction company, I used to spend a lot of time out on construction sites. My company had a pretty good travel and meal policy, so I never had any issues. But one rule they did have was that you could purchase meals on the company credit card only if you were doing an overnight stay. The idea was that they didn't want meals to be charged to the company if you were just driving back home each night anyway. Most of my work sites were pretty far off, so this never made much difference to me, as I was always staying at a hotel during these trips. One project needed me to work at a place that was 45 minutes away from my home. I wanted to go home each night and sleep in my own bed, but I was told I couldn't incur food expenses as I was not staying overnight. I just wanted to eat dinner before I went back home, but I wasn't allowed. Cue malicious compliance. I began to book hotel stays costing $150 a night and incurred food expenses of $50 a day. Now I was charging lunch, dinner, and the morning breakfast. So in the end, the company paid for close to $1,000 of expenses because of a policy that would have otherwise cost them a maximum of $50. Nobody asked anything about it because first, it is a very large company, and secondly, they knew I hadn't broken any rules. That's pretty funny. I get why this policy exists, but stories like this are exactly why some policies need an exception. Like, maybe if you're not staying at a hotel, you get a budget of $50. I don't know. Our next story comes from Mr. Bowties. Manager changed my schedule as a power move, so I stuck to it. A few years ago, I worked at a physical media chain in New England. My location was new, so when I was hired, I was interviewed by the district manager and a higher up because the manager hadn't been hired yet. When I applied, I made a very small window for availability, but I was also willing to close or work later shifts and work all weekends. So they agreed, and even though it was a set schedule, I did come in multiple times to cover someone else. The manager they hired was an absolute control freak. It didn't start bad, but it got ridiculous. She hated the fact that I had a set schedule. Not because I was needed at other times, I was working the least desirable shifts. It was because she didn't control it. She even said that. About a year and a half of working there and her dropping hints that we might need to renegotiate my schedule again for no actual reason. She scheduled me to come in 4 hours earlier on the day before my weekend to just shake things up. I brought it up and she told me to make plans. Essentially, just get over it. I was mad, but I did just that. My wife and I planned a date night when I would have normally been working. On the day in question, I get a call saying that the employee who was closing that night instead of me, she swapped me with a less reliable employee, had called in sick, and I needed to come in for my normally scheduled time. I was so happy to tell them that I was sorry, but couldn't change in such short notice because I made plans. The assistant manager, who was just as giddy as the manager was to tell me about the shakeup, had to do a split shift and cancel a Tinder date because I did as I was told and made plans instead of being upset. This is a perfect example of malicious compliance, the OP doing exactly what their manager asked and it backfiring. I love it. Bravo, OP. Good work. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and I will see you in the next video.